Hello and welcome to Legally Speaking with me, Tarun Nangia. We welcome you to our flagship series, which is on the incoming Chief Justice of India. Now he's taken oath. This is on Chief Justice of India, Justice Bhushan Gavai, opportunities and suggestions. And I have an eminent panel with me who will speak on this today. Let me welcome Justice Hema Kohli. She's a leading arbitrator, but she has served as a judge of the Supreme Court of India. Earlier, she has served as the Chief Justice of Telangana. Good to see you and looking forward to some interesting insights and anecdotes from you. We have with us Senior Advocate Pinky Anand. She practices at the Supreme Court of India, and she's one of the first women in currently practicing in India in law to have passed out from Harvard University. And for long years, she served as the Additional Solicitor General of India, also served as the head of the legal cell of the Bharatiya Janata Party. Good to see you, ma'am, and looking forward to some interesting insights from you. I have with me Senior Advocate Arvind Nair, who practices at the Supreme Court of India, the Delhi High Court, NCLT, and CLAT, and other forums. Good to see you. We managed to wean him away from court in time to join us for the show. We thank you for your time. I have with me Advocate Aditya Jaukar, who practices at the Bombay High Court and the Supreme Court of India. He's joining us from Mumbai. Good to see you, Aditya, and thank you for your time. At the outset, let me request Justice Hema Kohli to give some observations on what kind of person Justice Bhushan Gavai is, and then we'll move on to suggestions. Over to you, ma'am, for your opening comment.
Yeah, so Tarun, on a personal note, of course, he's now, as of yesterday, the Chief Justice of India. As a puisne judge, in the Supreme Court, I had the pleasure of sitting with him uh, on and off on benches when there is a bench partner who's on leave. But we had a stint together in 22 of May, spilling over June, the vacation time. And I thought it was a great experience to sit with Justice Gavai. We both thoroughly enjoyed ourselves. Were able to do a lot of matters. Despite vacations, I don't think in our court there was any lag in doing regular matters. In fact, the whole list on some days. And I found him to be so quick on the uptake. We were on the same page mostly. We did the whole gamut of matters, whether it was criminal, civil, or it was a regular PIL type of matter. Take, for example, that Jagannath Puri Presents matter, which was a PIL before the Orissa High Court, and a judgment was challenged before, one of the orders was challenged before the Supreme Court. Brother Gavai and I heard the matter, and because there was urgency and because we didn't want to stall the work that was going on, the order was reserved the same day we started dictating it for it to be pronounced the next day. We probably worked through the night almost till 2 a.m. with draft orders being sent by him, being corrected and sent back by me, back and forth, all through the night. Nothing physical, by the way. It was all done on online, and we had closed it by 2:30 a.m. with all of us working, and it was pronounced in the morning. It was so satisfying that we were able to wrap that up with the speed with which and the alacrity with which it did. And I thought that was so creditable that it was hands-on, one could see it. Also, he's a very kind-hearted man, a real gentleman to the core. I don't think there's ever a time with any of us colleagues have had an occasion to walk up to him and not find him listening, or is returning a call at any point in time, even till day before. I can tell you that if there was a missed call, he'd call back and say, all well. That is the kind of man he is. And I'm glad that now he'll be heading and leading the judiciary and doing good things for all of us in the country.
Thank you for giving us a peek into the gentleman that Justice Bhushan Gavai is. I'll go to Senior Advocate Pinky Anand for her opening comment. Over to you, ma'am.
Indeed, I'm delighted. There is an earlier point of time that I was speaking about Justice Kohli, as we remember in the program. I'm glad we are joining hands today in unison for Chief Justice Gavai. And indeed, I think he's an amazing person. And I mean as a person, as a human being, as a judge. I've seen him from the days of his having taken oath in Nagpur bench of Maharashtra High Court. and ultimately proceeded to, in fact, appear before him a couple of times in Nagpur High Court, and followed him here while he's been in the bench here. And indeed, I find him actually very amiable. You come off his court without feeling that something has hit you by any chance. I think that's not to do only with our skills as lawyers, it is to do with his skills as a person and as a judge. And I think that's the best quality of a judge. See, winning and losing is part of a same stream. It depends on the case. But to come back from a judge who actually hears you, is able to absorb, as Hema said very rightly, you ultimately, it's the laxity. I mean, the same thing is absorbed, dealt with, and I found him very humane. And I find him that, ultimately in matters of urgency, of matters of speaking of moment, as we say, he really acts with precision. And for example, in a matter of Karnataka, coming from the Karnataka High Court, some girls had been kept back, and there was a question of them being trafficked overnight. He was sitting in a constitution bench, ultimately allowed mentioning, took up the matter within 1 hour, then again took it up in 2 hours, and passed an order in as many terms, preventing the children from being taken out of the home and ensuring that the children are produced before the Juvenile Justice Board so that their statements could be taken and it could be ensured that their safety and security is there. Aside from that, I think he's made landmark situations coming from his positions, his status, his caliber. So, having said that, I think he's a delightful person to meet within the court and outside the court. And you come back with a sense of satisfaction in all respects.
Thank you for that opening comment. I couldn't agree with you more. Hundreds of people have come to Delhi to witness his swearing in. Popular he is, and popular he remains, and popular he will be, given the kind of relations he's built over years. I'll go to Senior Advocate Arvind Nair. Mr. Nair, you get an opportunity to appear in his court. What have you soaked in?
Before I comment on that, let me just point out that he brings in a wealth of experience. He was elevated. I just did a little bit of my sort of Google searching. He was elevated as far back as November 2003. So today we have a man hemming the institution who's had a long stint of 22 years. And he practiced first, of course, Aditya will tell us more about this. He practiced for a few years in Mumbai and then before the Nagpur bench. And I was looking, there is a wealth of diverse experience there, municipal authorities, universities, public prosecutor, special prosecutor. And I think that's what we are seeing in the judgments also, that absolute command. Again, agreeing with Justice Kohli, a lot of empathy and compassion. I believe it was him who, in the absence of Justice Khanna, who was traveling at that point of time, initiated the 2-minute silence after the Pahalgam, the unfortunate incident at Pahalgam had taken place. So that shows a lot of empathy and compassion. And again, as my esteemed colleague Pinky ji said, judgments come and go. Sometimes we get success, sometimes we don't. But empathy and compassion, I think, is very, very important given the kind of workloads that our judges work under. And, if a lawyer in a counsel and litigant goes back thinking that he's been heard patiently and, he's got a ear, they go back with that satisfaction. So there is that wealth of experience, empathy, compassion, great experience and knowledge. And about my own experience, I happened to appear before him in a batch matter. I think this was about 3 months back. I mean, I have appeared otherwise also, but this was a batch where I think all in all, there were probably 10 senior counsels, 30 lawyers, and you know how these batches pan out. Justice Kohli, having seen some of those, some of us were logged in. All Justice Gavai said very strictly that I will take it up next week because it was on transfer. But please ensure that everybody who wishes to address us is physically present in court. And the next week, after 7 days, when it came up, we were all physically present in court. And if my memory serves me right, the entire batch was over in about 15 minutes. So need I say more?
Thank you for that opening comment, Mr. Nair. I'll go to Aditya Ajgaonkar. Aditya, Justice Gavai has practiced in High Court that you practice in, and he spent significant amount of time there. And could you tell him what you heard of him and any opportunities to appear in his court in these years in Delhi as well as in Mumbai.
I say this, the bar is a very social place, and we tend to talk a lot about judges, and we hear the best stories. Sometimes you get to hear amazing stories of senior judges that are already there, of their days as lawyers. And Justice Gavai was very well known even in Mumbai city, though he, of course, got elevated from Nagpur during his days because he used to commute also. And I believe a lot of people, he made very strong bonds with the Mumbai bar also. It's not just the Bombay High Court bar. Also, the stories of his efficiency. I mean, Supreme Court, everyone knows the judges are very fast and the court runs very fast. The standard usually for a high court is the high court board runs slower, but Justice Gavai's board has always been extremely efficient. The before Justice Gavai, he would come to the nub of the matter immediately, even in the High Court days. And before you know it, I mean, the matter would be disposed of. And I think that is something, that is a tradition that he's continued till date. If what Mr. Nair says is true, that he disposed of the batch matter in 15 minutes with all lawyers, and I'm presuming very senior lawyers physically present there. If he can finish off a batch matter in 15 minutes, you can imagine, how it was. But also, everyone always has spoken about him very, very fondly. And if there are 700 to 800 lawyers right now in Delhi for his swearing in, as yesterday, which was there, you can imagine his popularity. I mean, this was a day a lot of people were looking to out of sheer respect for him. And I think everyone is very curious to see what changes he brings about now as Chief Justice and as an able administrator. Though we've all had the opportunities to see, such multiple facets of his personality. He's been a part of arbitration judgments, in the Constitution bench, personal liberty. I don't think there is a subject that he hasn't, given authoritative judgments on, that he hasn't been a part on. And I think having such a diverse repertoire is just something else. It is that he is a chief justice now, so we should be looking forward to now the administrative part of it also.
That's a good point. And since he served in the High Court for such a long time, I think administration should come to him easy, because we've seen that judges who served in High Courts do a stellar job when elevated to Supreme Court in administrative matters. We'll go to Justice Hema Kohli. Ma'am, any suggestions? This we come to our basically subtopic of suggestions. Any suggestions that you would want to give Justice Gavai on various issues, from court infrastructure to mentioning to anything that you would like to share?
Tarun, just as an aside, before I touch that question that you posed, recently, maybe a week, 10 days ago, there was this book released by Justice Ramanna, the former Chief Justice of India, in which Justice Gavai, as the Chief Justice designate, was the chief guest. And so Justice Suryakant and Justice Vikram Nath were there alongside. And he had, in that speech, also spoken of infrastructure. And in the context of what Justice Ramanna had touched upon, saying that it is important to have an infrastructure for particularly the district courts across the country, which are really reeling under problems. And he picked up the thread and went on to expound on that. And not only that, the warmth that he infused on the subject and with Justice Ramanna, it was such a pleasure to see them all on the same dais, and with the respect and the regard he showed to the former Chief Justice. It shows the humility of the man. You could actually see the friendship more than, and he would still addressing him as his Chief Justice. Now, these are stellar things that stand out. And that audience was, but perhaps we had 50% of the sitting Supreme Court judges and the retired Supreme Court judges, besides the High Court judges, and a whole range of lawyers, presidents of bars, and everybody there. And he stepped out. It was not as if Justice Gavai stepped out of the dais and walked off. He was there, mingling with a lot of people, chatting with them, happily posing for photographs. So that's the kind of person he is. And coming back to what is expected of him, I think he's laid out his roadmap which was apparent from his interaction with bar and bench. And one of his primary things was the problem of listing, which all law practitioners in the Supreme Court would have issues with. And he's the very fact that he's conscious of it and he wants to deal with it shows that he has made his markers. Another problem with another milestone is that the functioning of the court as to how should we bifurcate the week in the Supreme Court into miscellaneous and regular, like we have two miscellaneous today. He's conscious that one regular day would not be sufficient, regulars will be mounting, of batching, of tagging. He's touched it all. Again, diversity. Coming from the background as he does, we all know he is the second Chief Justice from the backward community. He's very conscious of the fact that diversity has to be brought onto the bench. I remember when I was demitting office, I had requested the then Chief Justice of India, Justice Chandrachud, that I hope that when I demit office, there's another woman that you find who can fill up that space. I think now it's high time that perhaps Justice Gavai would have to look at it with my sister Bela Trivedi ji. Demitting office very soon, we'll be only left with a singular woman judge in the Supreme Court. I hope that is something that resonates with him. And the very fact that he's already highlighted that diversity. And diversity, believe you me, makes a world of a difference. And I'm not talking of just of women. I'm talking of minority. I'm talking of OBCs, backward communities, various categories. That really does bring diversity on the bench. Diversity is visible from the thought process, the way one considers matters, and the way one decides them. So that is imperative. And he has already highlighted it that he has 6 months doesn't mean that he won't do, he can't do everything. But he knows that he has those 6 months and he can deliver within the 6 months. He has decided to put his nose to the grindstone from the vocations itself. So he means business is what is apparent.
Thank you for giving that insight into Justice Gavai's persona as well as sharing the suggestions. I'll go to Senior Advocate Pinky Anand for her suggestions for Justice Bhushan Gavai.
How do you give suggestions to the Chief Justice of India? But yes, I mean, we observe and we stand by and watch and we participate with him. So, in the administration of justice, which we need to look at. But I'm saying that the first instance, my thought, Tarun, is this that he really has a plethora of situations ahead of him. And he's demonstrated an acumen which we haven't so far maybe pointed out, none of us. And I would like to flag that, which is that he has gone across the board on judgments that he has already delivered. For example, the demonetization case, the Kashmir case, the revocation of status of 370, etc. And he's demonstrated a neutrality and an impartiality across board and across thoughts and across even political parties, which stands on a very high platform. And I think Chief Justice Gavai also faces and is on the threshold of an immense time. I mean, look at, you're of course just walked out of the Pakistan and India situation, where India has of course come out flat top with the whole problem. And aside from that, and I'm glad that hasn't come to court in any sense, but aside from that, he has the situations of so many immense developments. Let's say, for example, the Waqf Amendment Act, which he is to decide. He has within the Places of Worship Act, which he has to decide. He has before him the situation just on in the middle. He's come in the middle of the judges' corruption situation, which he has to ultimately take on and decide what to do with it, because at this point of time, he just come up with whatever has in the public domain and knowledge in the public domain. So I mean, I stand strong on the fact that I believe that he will be making mark in the demonstration of the justice delivery system, aside from, of course, and in addition to the other processes which we take. Second thing that I would like to flag really is here, at this point of time, I do believe that we need to have a little more systematic demonstration of cases and dealing with cases in the Supreme Court. There is some ambiguity aside from, of course, the load. The load is there, we all know that and we appreciate that. But having said that, there has to be some more systematic dealing with the position, because yes, there are urgent matters, yes, but there are also routine matters. So somewhere down the line, it must be drawn as to how the matters will be dealt with, because it goes from one court to the other court, and there is some bit of chaos with litigants as much as young counsels, as much as the filing counsels, who need to know where they are going. And I think for that purpose, we need to put in a system into place, which is possibly a little more improved than what we have at this point of time. I hope I'm not saying anything too much out of turn, but my desire is to give as much efficiency to the system that I can contribute. And that contribution has to be by way of a superior system on procedure as well as on substance. Believe me, we have the best law in the world. I don't think we need to look at anybody in the world to say we are there. We are there. But the constitution makers, the constitution interpreters, this is where we are. This is where the balance hangs. And we need to deliver to the common man as much as we need to deliver to the major parts of the interpretation of constitution. And that is my belief. And we should, I'm very happy, recently there's been a number of developments on the front of when matters should really be decided by the Supreme Court. How many matters should go to Supreme Court? What kind of matter should go to Supreme Court? I think we need to keep revisiting these positions from time to time. And to my belief, Justice Gavai is just the right person to do that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your suggestions to Justice Bhushan Gavai and to Senior Advocate Arvind Nair for his suggestions to Justice Gavai.
I'm going to repeat what Pinky ji said. One feels very humble. I don't think, frankly speaking for myself, I don't think I'm qualified to give any suggestions. But in any case, whatever I have to say has already been covered by Justice Kohli and Pinky ji. But just to add to what they said, not only do I agree and think that we have the best constitution in the world, I also think we have the best constitutional courts in the world. The kind of empathy and compassion, the disposal, given the sheer numbers that come from our Supreme Court and our high courts, I don't think we see anywhere, and specifically the Commonwealth. You can look at Australia, you can look at UK, you can look at other Western countries which have similar constitutions. The kind of cases they hear, I think the US Supreme Court probably hears what, 10 or 20 or 30 cases at best in a year. And look at our miscellaneous days, look at our non-miscellaneous days, the sheer workload. So, I mean, I really can't add much except, as Pinky ji said, about a little more streamlining of the listing process so that those who come to the Supreme Court from out of town, or those who are coming there for the first time and will never come again, unless it's a personal issue which is calling them to the Supreme Court, have a little more clarity as to how cases are going to be taken up, how they are to be listed. I think every Chief Justice that we've had have taken several steps, and I think Justice Gavai, given how popular he is with the bar and how conscious he is to the feedback from the bar, we heard about him at a recent function. Aditya told us about how many deep connections he had with the Bombay bar. So, when a judge is that popular, what happens is, Tarun, it also demystifies the institution. When it comes to lawyers and it comes to judges, we look at the institution in a particular manner, but we are also talking about the common litigant. So I think it demystifies the institution, and I think he's going to take more steps. Having said that, it's a very exciting time in the sense that it's exciting in the sense that there are several retirements, so there is going to be some representation, as Justice Kohli said. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, recently Justice Gavai was also asked a direct question about representation of women, and he said that they'll be looking at suitable candidates. So that's one part. The other is this is also a very sensitive time, given there have been a few recent incidents, not hugely complimentary to the image of this great institution. So it's also a very sensitive time, and I think we have the man of the moment in the sense that he has these emotional bonds with the bar. He has an equation with his former colleagues. And I think all of that is going to stand him in very good stead, and we'll see some stellar steps from him. That, I mean, what else can we say for somebody who has such wealth of experience?
Yes, point very well taken. I'll go to Advocate Aditya Ajmakar for his suggestions for Justice Bhushan Gavai.
If my seniors who are forming a part of this panel do not consider themselves as having locus of giving suggestions to the Chief Justice of India, I am a very, very young and relatively insignificant lawyer. But so I will not try to give any advice or suggestion, but I am very excited. Let me just say, I am very excited about the sort of things that may happen that may percolate down to the high court level. We've been talking about a backlog of course, cases and pendency across the country for a while, the number of vacancies in the high court, etc., for a while. And we've also being seeing a sort of push and pull happen, over the years across, multiple time frames about appointments. And I am, by what I hear and what I have seen, Chief Justice Gavai has the ability to take everyone along with him, even as a person, as a this thing. So I am rather hopeful that the long-awaited appointments at the various high court levels, of course, Supreme Court takes care of itself. There are a lot of stalwarts looking out for the Supreme Court, right there in Delhi. But across the country, I personally would love to see the sort of appointments that would happen to fill up the vacancies at the high court level, because finally it comes down to the Supreme Court collegium also, about processing those things ahead, and seeing that they are now made up. There's been a lot of talk recently about what is happening in the judiciary, some good things, some bad things, etc. For me per se, I would like to see appointments that will stand in good stead, where judges will get the next 22 years, and maybe after 22 years, by then also, maybe Tarun will be asking me to give some suggestions someday to someone who's been elevated now. Because I think for 6 months is a very, very short period, for no matter how accomplished you may be, and it is a position that has so much responsibility beyond just the judicial side, the administrative side. I mean, I am full of awe by what I hear. A Supreme Court judge does in the course of the week. I think lawyers complain about being very busy, but the normal perception is that once you become, get elevated at 5 o'clock, you leave the courtroom and then it's relaxed. But people who are regularly know that there know that it is anything but that judges never go off duty. I don't think they ever get to shut off. And I don't think the office of the Chief Justice of India might be giving a lot of opportunities for someone to take any sort of rest also on the weekends, etc. But I'm excited about the new things that would come in, about what collaborations can now happen, across the spectrum of lawyers. And I think a lot of things that have been asked over the last few months, a lot of questions will now be answered, because, well, we've now had Justice Gavai as
And,
Chief Justice Gavai.
we all know him as a decision maker. He never shies away from taking a decision, and I think time flies. It was only, I think, yesterday that we did a show on Justice Hema Kohli, calling her the pride of Delhi Bar, when she was elevated to the Supreme Court. And now time has come when Justice Hema Kohli will give her best wishes to Justice Bhushan Gavai for taking over as Chief Justice of India. Your wishes for Justice Bhushan Gavai?
I must acknowledge how gracious all of you were who were participating in that program, and which includes Pinky with their kind words. And it is very humbling, let me say that. And I'm sure with Justice Gavai as CJI, he says he's off social media, so I don't expect him to watch any of this. Whenever it comes to his ears, he's so humble and shows such grace that I'm sure that all this will bode well for him. It bodes well for the institution that he represents. Um, One thing that I must highlight is his kindness to the younger members of the bar. That was something that really I find very important, and I tried to do as much as I could. And I find that Justice Gavai has a very kind heart when it comes to youngsters. He's equally encouraging After all, that's the next generation of the youngsters is what will make the seniors in the future. Very encouraging, doesn't let them hold back, let them say what they want to, doesn't cut them to size, which sometimes some of us have done. I don't endorse that, speaking for myself, particularly the youngsters. You can be tough on the seniors because they know how to take it and they know how to handle it. But when it comes to youngsters, sometimes you have to wear kid gloves just to encourage them and encourage that set of the bar that will make the future giants in the legal profession. So, our best wishes to Justice Gavai. It is important for us to know that he is conscious of the fact that he has that much time and he has to achieve some things. So, in his tick list, he has highlighted some of the issues. It's very pragmatic approach. He knows how much he can do and that much. So if one knows it, then one knows that one can't be so ambitious. It's not years we are talking about. We are talking of a set of months. So whatever he has done, I'm sure that he has made out his timeline, will do something and leave a mark for himself in the history of the country.
Thank you. Now we quickly move on to Senior Advocate Pinpi Kanand, your wish for Justice Bhushan Gavai.
Well, Chief Justice Gavai could well have been building Delhi today had he not chosen this path of having become a lawyer and then a judge. So, I mean, it's a long road down this. And of course, Delhi would have been much the better for it also, along with his role as a judge if he had been an architect. But now that he has chosen this path, I believe his father had some role to play there. And he went down this road. And we are happy that somebody can build the country, build it according to the constitution, build it according to the rule of law, and build it across all surfaces. We want the institution to stand strong. And we want that Chief Justice Gavai, who stands as the epitome really of these positions, holds it strong there for 6 months that he is there and will continue to guide us all down the line.
In fact, very nice of you to say, because today at lunch with Justice Dilip Bhosle, he told me that when his father was the Chief Minister of Maharashtra, Justice Bhushan Gavai's father was the Speaker of the Assembly.
Yes.
So he has a political lineage, and maybe he takes that up after retirement. You never know. You see him in Parliament, but that remains a wish. We'll go to Senior Advocate Arvind Nair for his wish for Justice Bhushan Gavai.
I think for someone who has a roadmap, and we heard that there is a map there, 6 months is also not that short. It's a reasonable period of time, and as Justice Kohli said, he will do that much and whatever can be done in 6 months. So we are just hoping that it's, and I'm very sure that these are going to be very impactful 6 months. I'm quite sure of that, and we all wish him very well.
In fact, given the kind of very bold decisions in the recent past, I think he will deliver verdicts that will be memorable for times to come. Aditya Ajgapur, your wishes to Justice Bhushan Gavai.
Well, we as lawyers are, of course, with him, and we will give our full support. But, again, finally, it is Chief Justice Gavai who will set the tone and lead us all there, in the next era. So we wish him all the best. I guess that's all I can say.
Thank you. I would like to thank each one of you, Justice Hima Kohli, Senior Advocate Pinki Anand, Senior Advocate Arvind Nair, Advocate Aditya Ajgapur, for making time for this special show on Justice Gavai. It is indeed a memorable thing. You become the Chief Judge of India only once. It is a position, in addition to all the qualities as a judge you may have, you need a lot of luck to become the Chief Justice of India. And he has all that luck, and let's see how he does. But thank you so much for finding time for this one. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tarun. Thank you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.